This is Culture, Communication, and Brand Moments with Shelby Joe Long, the show that takes you around the world to share interviews with some of the most successful and relevant people on the planet, hear their stories, and get the most important business lessons they have learned on their road to success, and get exclusive advice on how to implement their success into your life and business. Culture, Communication, and Brand Moments is brought to you by the Strategic Advisor Board and your host, Shelby Joe Long.
Hey, are you looking to scale your business from 5 figures to 6 figures or 6 figures to 7 figures? If you are, I have the perfect thing for you. What I want you to do today is I want you to go download a book. This book is going to take you through my 3-pillar system. It's 100% free. All you have to do is go to growfast.cash. I say again, go to growfast.cash and you're going to be able to download my free international best-selling book, which is called Be Good, Be Brief, Be Gone. You can take that book. It's going to help you scale your business to the next level. Again, go download it. Be good, be brief, be gone. Growfast.cash. I say again, growfast.cash. Enjoy.
Hi, Shelby Joe Long here with the Genius Entrepreneur Podcast. I have the opportunity to tell people stories about how they are starting to make their impact in the world by creating a business out of their genius, out of their true calling, so they can live a life of inspiration and inspire others to do the same thing. Today is no exception. A friend of mine that I've known for many, many years now in the entrepreneur life here in Billings, Montana. Clementine and I have known each other for a while, but our paths are starting to converge a little bit more in the entrepreneur space. I'm excited to hear more about her history and about what she's doing and her new podcast that's coming out in the spring of 2025. We'll talk about that. So Clementine, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
Of course. I'm so excited to have you here. Can you just give us an introduction of yourself and who you are and what you do and how just give me the quick elevator pitch.
So, well, I don't know that I do anything quickly, so bear with me for a minute. My name's Clementine. I am born and raised in Montana. I spent about a decade away from Montana, but as my dad always said when I was growing up, that Montana sucks. It sucks you right back. And I'm back in Montana, and I kind of have created a life in a space that I just love here in Montana. But up until, today, currently, I own a yoga studio. I've owned that studio for almost 3 years. I bought it from a friend and who was looking to change careers and have built it into a wellness brand and a wellness space in our community to be something that really resonates with getting people in tune with their mind and body. And that's based on some things that happened with me during COVID and my own experience. And then what other way of buying a yoga studio? It's like the most yoga story ever, being like, I had a dream that I owned the studio, so I bought it. But that's what happened. I had a dream 3 times that I owned a yoga studio, this yoga studio, so I bought it. I understand the privilege that is in that statement. So it was not without trials, tribulations, and a lot of dedication on my spouse's part to help me get to this point. But before that, what led me up to this space of entrepreneurship and kind of finding my own genius. It's funny that you asked that question because I just had this conversation with my kids in the last 2 weeks. And they were like, Mom, how are you? Why do you do what you do? And all of a sudden I realized I've literally been selling something since I was in the 3rd grade. I remember I wanted a clock radio telephone. I grew up in a really poor family. My parents couldn't afford it. We had one line. We didn't have call waiting. That cost too much. I'm also dating about myself on how old I am.
That's all right. We're all the same age.
And so for me, it was I wanted this clock radio telephone. And so I remember finding out that if I um did this bike-a-thon in my one-speed Schwinn 1956 bicycle, if I rode 20 miles and got sponsorships to a certain value, I could win a clock radio telephone. And we lived in a duplex that had an outlet for the phone in my room. And so I knew I could plug it in and it would work. I just had to convince my parents that I should have a telephone in my room in like the third or fourth grade. Just kind of like the equivalent of our kids trying to convince us that they should have video games in their room in third or fourth grade. But, you know, and my mom, not thinking that I would do it, actually said, yeah, if you can get the money to get a clock radio telephone and at that point in time, they were like $75. And in 1990, that was a lot of money.
Yeah.
And so I remember being like, okay, how do I do this? How do I get to where I want to go? And I found this fundraiser. I went around my neighborhood. I got sponsorships to ride 20 miles on a single speed bicycle. And I remember my mom told me if I ran that bike-a-thon, not only would I get my prize, but she would buy me a new 10-speed bike. And I was like, oh my gosh, now I really have to do this. And it was the hardest 20 miles of my life that I've ever ridden on a bicycle. I still think to this day, I'm like, I rode 20 miles. Well, fast forward to the next year, I wanted some other weird prize that was there. And I got my clock radio telephone.
Yeah.
It's not allowed to plug it into the wall, but I got my clock radio telephone. The next year, I had some other ridiculous prize I wanted. So I decided I was going to ride 40 miles. Because 20 almost killed me. Why wouldn't I double it? And so I did. I had this brand new 10-speed mountain bike, and I rode it 40. And I was like, oh my gosh, if I could ride 20 miles on a single speed, I could ride 40 miles on a 10-speed. And I did. And I got my prize. And what I didn't know then, and now I know looking back at it, is that I was already starting my entrepreneurship journey of making connections, asking for what I wanted, not letting no get in my way. People would say, that's really hard. I was in fifth grade. You're not going to be able to do that. And I was like, oh, yes, I am. Watch me. And then I ended up in my adult life going into development, which I didn't think much of. It just seemed like a continuation of what I'd done through my childhood. When I went to college, I did get a degree in liberal studies, which is kind of, I like to say, a little bit of everything and nothing all at once. It was more important to me to study abroad for a year than it was for me to actually get a degree in a subject, which I can say I successfully did. I studied abroad in Ireland for a year. And that was my goal in college, was to live abroad in another country and not have to pay for it out of my own pocket, I guess. I mean, I did pay, I'm still paying for it out of my own pocket, but it wasn't an immediate expense. And then I went back to Ireland after I completed undergrad in Seattle. And I went back to Ireland and got my master's degree in peace and conflict studies, focusing on conflict mediation and conflict resolution. And then I got a really amazing job with an organization in Seattle called the Crew Institute that taught peer mediation in schools. And we, as young adults or adults, came into elementary schools, middle schools, and high schools and taught students and teachers how to facilitate peer mediation amongst students and their peers. And I knew at that point that like the nonprofit world was probably where I wanted to be the rest of my life. Fast forward, I ended up leaving my nonprofit job. I was the executive director of a mental health nonprofit, and I had two little kids at home. I decided to stay home with them and help them grow up. And in the process, got bored. So I started two businesses that one totally flopped. And Had a great logo, had a great name. I probably could have done more to it, but I just wasn't passionate about it. So I just closed up that book, and all the boxes I had from it, I used for moving boxes next time I moved. And it was one of those things that I learned from, not like I learned from that,
Yeah.
but it wasn't, at the time it was sad, but now that I look at it, it was exactly part of my life's journey. Like if I didn't have that failure, I wouldn't be able to go on to where I am now. Then I started another company, which was a craft subscription box. I named it after my grandmother and my best friend's grandmother, who were crafty, and they both grew up in the Great Depression, like their Depression era children. And one was more crafty than the other. My grandmother lived in outside of New York City and never learned to drive, but definitely knew. I mean, I've never seen socks as white as the socks that came out of her washing machine. She had her own domestic diva way of life. So I started that. It did really well. And then COVID hit, and I couldn't source any of my products anymore. All of my crafting supplies came from China, and pretty much everything shut down. So I had to nicely button that up. And honestly, it wasn't nice. I forgot to notify people that I was closing my doors. I did a month where they didn't even get a box, and I took their money, and then I had to refund their money. And then they had, like, all this stuff happened, right? It was just, the end of my business was actually really embarrassing because it wasn't how the customer service I wanted to provide. It wasn't anything I wanted to do. So I learned from that. And then I homeschooled my daughter for a year during COVID. I don't ever want to do that again. And it wasn't like remote school. It was legit. Like I had a curriculum. I followed the curriculum. I taught her at her own house. I did AmeriCorps once and was a volunteer teacher with AmeriCorps for a year, and an after school coordinator. And I remembered why I didn't go into teaching full time.
Sometimes it takes that experience to know that.
Yeah, well, and then teaching your own child, it makes it that much more exciting, I guess you could say. Right?
For sure.
And so I did that. And then this yoga studio opportunity showed up kind of at my door, um, and that's where I'm at. 3 years later, I have this yoga studio that's really promoting wellness and well-being in our community. And I don't have any intentions of franchising or making it bigger than outside of what we have here, but it is exactly what we need in this community. And I've never had to advertise for members. I've never had to advertise for teachers. It just kind of is a symbiotic relationship within our community, and it works.
Yeah. Well, uh, we started to get to know each other right around your craft business.
Yes.
And then COVID happened, and then we knew each other when I was at college too. But I love hearing those stories and the lessons that you learn from, because I think it's such an important part of being an entrepreneur is that you're going to try some things, but you're also going to fail at them.
Oh,
and
yeah.
That's okay, because then you pivot and you adjust, and then you learn, and then that makes everything better, or the next step better, not everything better. But my question for you after you tell your story, and I know there's a lot more to the story, but when did you start identifying yourself as an entrepreneur? Because it sounds similar to me in that I didn't really discover, like, I had traits of being an entrepreneur, and I launched my own business, but I don't know if I'd identify myself as an entrepreneur until now. You know what I mean? Because you had like this nonprofit experience, and you bought a business, and you have, you've done lots of different things, and you also have this conflict resolution background too. And you're a speaker and you're a podcast. So when would you say that's even though you've had the traits, would you have called yourself an entrepreneur, or did that take some time?
It took a lot of time. After I left the nonprofit, I remember going to a networking group here in our community that was kind of a young professionals networking group. And and we're like over a decade now, but and there was another local entrepreneur in that group who said to me, you're like you're a serial entrepreneur like me. And I remember being like, what?
Yeah.
Me? It's like, are we talking about, is there someone behind me? Like, who are you talking to? And I realized that, yes, she was talking about me. And yes, I had in my brief period of knowing her in the 4 years at the time she said this to me, gone from being the executive director of a nonprofit, started a party supply company that's the one that went under. I had had an idea for a children's clothing store in our community and just didn't have the capital at the time to get it off the ground. And then someone else started one and it's thriving. And we didn't need, our community isn't big enough or niche enough to have more than one, I don't believe. And then the craft subscription box. And so, yeah, at that point, she said that to me and I was like, oh,
yeah.
yeah, I guess when you start and stop and change and like are constantly cycling and thinking of things, that does make you an entrepreneur. And that does, when you do have so many, then you are a serial entrepreneur. Oh, huh. Okay. I guess I now can identify as being an entrepreneur. So I think that that's kind of, someone else had to call me an entrepreneur before I even recognized it in myself.
Yeah, it's true because you have, that's in my perception too. It's just like you have the qualities, the facing your fear and talking to other people and networking, and you find a solution to a problem and you figure out how to monetize it. And I feel like with all of that you've done, there's kind of this giving back and wellness piece to it with your yoga studio and your craft business. Like I feel like there's this overarching wellness piece to it. But then,
absolutely.
yeah, I feel like that's
and that's kind of where they all emerged from, right? Was this like being a mental health advocate and being the director of a mental health advocacy organization taught me a lot about those who deal with silent struggles. And I realized that I really enjoyed the advocacy piece more than I would have enjoyed a therapy piece or a medical piece or helping persons that have mental health issues and their family members who are dealing with persons who have mental health issues, like giving them the opportunity to thrive, to feel joy in life again, to believe that their life isn't over because they have a mental health condition. There's so much stigma around mental illness and even that word illness. Then, my dad even says, he's like, oh, I don't have ADD, I just have AD. And I'm like, he's like, it's not a disorder. And I was like, well, by dictionary definition, it is actually a disorder. It's just not a negative disorder. It means that's lack of order, disorder. And so he's like, well, I mean, it's like, that's like ADD is like if you want a disorder of all disorders, ADD, ADHD, it's all in that same, right?
The same space.
So, but I have to like, there's nothing wrong with saying you have a disorder. I have lots of disorders. My bedroom's a disorder. My brain is a disorder. Like, let's be honest. Like, raising my children is a disorder. Like, none of it has rhyme or reason. So, so for me, it's a matter of how we talk and about certain words like illness, mental wellness. It all has a place. And I think my goal is that by the time I die, that my children and my grandchildren can speak about mental illness the same way my grandmother and my mother can speak about cancer. When my mother was my age, you couldn't say the word cancer. It was just the C word.
Right.
Now the C word is much different.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And so, but when my mom was my age, if a friend had cancer or my grandmother's friend had cancer, but, so with cancer, if you dealt with that, then we didn't talk about it, right? Like it's kind of that space of we don't talk about Bruno kind of thing. Like, um, and if you can't see it, it doesn't exist. And I think that my goal, I just really hope that when my kids get older, especially my granddaughter, when she gets older, that we'll be able to, she'll be able to talk about, oh yeah, my friend has depression and blah, blah, blah. It's just normal, right? Like it's still sad. It's still not easy, but it's not scary or social pariah of a situation. So yeah, so that's kind of, I think,
Looking to grow your business beyond 5 figures, 6 figures, 7 figures plus, what I want you to do is go download this book. The title is called Be Good, Be Brief, Be Gone. It will help you grow your business past 5, 6, and 7 figure. Go download the book today. Growfast.cash. I say again, growfast.cash, and download the book for absolutely free.
That sounds like, I mean, you're getting into your podcast because you're going to launch your podcast. Sounds like that has inspired you to be more vocal about it, be more visible about it. So talk to us about this podcast that you're launching.
Yeah, so January, I'm going to launch my podcast. It's called Are You Fucking Kidding Me? Thoughtful Parenting Podcast. And I've had this idea in my head for years. And the thing that I thought it was going to be a book, honestly. I really wasn't planning on it being a book. And I have had a number of people being like, Clementine, you love to talk. Clementine, your voice is important. Why are you going to write a book that someone else has to read? Why are you not telling your own stories in your own voice? So it got me thinking, and I was like, well, okay, then a podcast it is. So I started kind of thinking about it, but I've always had this idea. My oldest child's 27, my next child's 14, and my youngest is 14, and now I have a 2-year-old granddaughter. And I think the thing of it is that I've watched, and before I had children, I had friends who had children. And so I always watched my friends who I thought were good parents, like, what did they do right? And I watched my friends who I didn't think were great parents and go, what did they do wrong? Right? Like, what do I agree with? What do I not agree with? And I think what I have come away with is this, like, what works for me doesn't work for somebody else, and what works for somebody else doesn't work for me necessarily. And it doesn't mean that someone's doing it right or wrong. But at the end of the day, I have people asking me what I did or what my parents did to raise good humans. And I realized that I had this wealth of information about how to parent in a way that's thoughtful, in a way that kind of melds love and logic based parenting with other ways of being, like other ways of natural consequences of teaching emotional intelligence, of understanding the psychology of the human brain, that, infant can't manipulate you. It's just impossible. They literally have no ability in their brain to manipulate a situation. So if they're crying for 3 hours, it's not because they're manipulating you. It's because they literally are trying to communicate. And as an adult and as a parent, I have to figure out what that looks like.
And your podcast will investigate all those topics.
Yeah. So like the first episode is called The Toddler Tyrant. And it's kind of talking about going through infancy to toddlerhood and what that means. What does it mean to be run by a tiny dictator? And humorously, but also very thoughtfully, how do we not take ourselves so serious? I think, especially as a mom, we could honestly, or I can't speak for you, but I think most moms I've spoke to have had this emotion as well, that we can beat ourselves up over silly things that are even something as simple as the school drop off. And the phrase, "Are you fucking kidding me?" was the first time I ever felt parenting guilt. That was the phrase that came out of my mouth to my middle child when he spilled a gallon of glue on the floor right before we had to leave for daycare. And it wasn't just the floor, it was the carpet. So I couldn't let it dry. I had to actually take it away. Like it had to go. And so I had to actually clean it up and shampoo it and get it gone. And I was late for work and he was late for daycare. And when I walked downstairs, after he had to run downstairs real quick and I saw the mess, the first thing out of my mouth was, "Are you fucking kidding me?" And then I obviously lectured him because he was 3 and I'm sure understood everything that came out of my mouth. But I remember dropping him off at daycare and feeling so guilty that that's what I said to my 3-year-old.
Right.
Like, who says that to a 3-year-old? And then I realized, who doesn't say that to a 3-year-old? And if you don't say it out loud, then you're at least thinking it.
Yeah.
And so that's when I realized that's kind of like, okay, let's normalize not being perfect parents. Let's normalize that raising tiny humans sucks ass sometimes. And I use words like fuck and ass and shit a lot in my daily life. And so I figure that having this podcast that drops F-bombs and uses drinking as a humorous way of like blowing off steam. I don't advocate that at all, but I think there is kind of making fun of this like mom era that like, oh, mommy's had a hard day, I need a glass of wine. I think that's dumb, but I also think it's hilarious that that's how we're coping with life. Like, so I'm going to make fun of it and I'm going to, talk about how life is hard. And there's probably not enough meds or alcohol in this world to medicate being a parent, but we're going to try doing it. And sometimes we do need medication, and sometimes we do need to have adult time, and all of that's normal.
It's funny because everything you're talking about with the parenting, it seems I think their parenting has similar challenges as entrepreneurship, right? There's constant adjustment, there's the mentality, there's the fear of like, I've never done this before, it's so many interesting parallels. So,
like what happens if what if I don't buy my kid the AirPods that they want in the 6th grade? Am I going to be labeled as the worst parent ever? And then am I going to ruin my kid's life? It's the same thing of like, what if I don't pay that $300 ad to advertise in this magazine? Is that going to be like social suicide in my community? I don't know, but I'm going to go with my gut. I'm going to go with what I trust to be right. And hope is not a strategy, but sometimes you have to just hope for the best. It's not a strategy I would ever recommend to budding entrepreneurs, but everybody, there isn't a cookie cutter fits all strategy.
You got to trust yourself. That was the one question I wanted to ask you, because you have a a service business, your wellness business, your yoga studio. And this is more of a, we've talked about this before, more of a thought leadership type of business where you're starting the conversation. You want to demystify the world of parenting, to not normalize it, but that's kind of to just have the conversations, because those conversations might not be happening. But what do you feel are the differences in both of those businesses? Because I don't think you're monetizing your podcast right away, but at some point in time, you'll probably think about monetizing it, whether it's through workshops or a coaching program or books or whatever that is. Like, what do you think is different about the two approaches?
Gosh, that's a great question. I think that they're both passion projects for me, so it makes it really easy to just really go all in. But I think with the podcast, actually with both of them, I think the big thing is that I know what I've been through and my dark points in my own life. And I know, like with the yoga studio, yoga is what got me out of a dark point in my life. And I know in parenting, knowing that I wasn't alone was what got me out of a dark point in my life. So I think that kind of the same thing was true with yoga, right? You could do it alone. I could do it in my basement, watching a YouTube video or subscribing to a YouTube channel or a Patreon channel or something. But when I go and actually go to a class with a community, then I see that there's a whole crew of people who are like me, who are all different shapes and sizes and ages and abilities. And I realize that it's not as scary as it is in my head. Like I can create false truths super easy. And I think it's the same thing with the podcast and parenting. Like I think it's really easy that we create false narratives of what we believe to be true. I joke and say I just get my kids in therapy now, so I normalize therapy when they're adults, because I know they're going to need therapy from the things we've gone through as a family. Honestly, I feel like if my kids didn't need therapy, I'd be doing them a disservice because there's probably something else deeper going on, right? Therapy's a tool, not, again, a stigma.
Yeah.
And so for me, it's about normalizing the things that haven't been normal before. Therapy,
Yeah.
using emotional intelligence words. I was just actually, my daughter was, we were decorating the Christmas tree. My daughter said to me, like, I'm feeling frustrated because you guys keep interrupting me. And it was like, oh, okay, talk. Like, and we were interrupting her because she'd been dominating the conversation and we all had things we wanted to say, but she was very articulate and using her feeling words to say, hey, you guys, this isn't okay. And being like, you're right, it's not. And you told us you were frustrated and that it's our fault that you're frustrated because we're not being respectful. And I think as more humans learn to use words like mad, sad, angry, overwhelmed, excited, resentful, as we learn those words and use them in our daily vernacular to communicate with our spouses, our children, our parents, our friends, we're going to find that conflict will be easier to deal with because feeling words won't feel so uncomfortable to use.
Right.
And so I think that that's kind of what both of those are doing, right? One's teaching one to parents, one's teaching one to through yoga. Like in yoga, we always say, like, listen to your body, don't push too far. Like, it's okay if you can balance on one side, but not the other, because your body is telling you what it needs and what it wants. Listen to your body. Well, I feel the same way it's true with words. Listen to your body, use the feeling words. Do you feel sore? Do you feel, tight? Do you feel flexible? They're not feeling words in so much as we're talking about emotions, but those are actual physical feelings our body has with yoga too.
Yeah. And then it all comes back to your conflict resolution.
Yeah, kind of. Like it's all kind of
circle.
right? One big bag of, and who knew that, years ago when I got my master's degree, focusing on conflict resolution, that I'd actually be doing it in this space, in this way, as opposed to, honestly, when I got my degree, I thought I was going to go work for the UN. I thought I was going to go do peace missions for the UN. And I've never worked for the UN, not once. So,
but you're using that genius in other ways.
Yeah. And it's passion. I'm passionate about it.
It's a passion. It's part of who you are and how you process things. And I think that's what I try to inspire in these interviews is like everyone has a genius about them. Mm-hmm. It's inside of you. It's how you process things. It's all influenced by your world events and your successes and your failures and all of that comes together. We all have that. It just manifests in so many different ways. And with you, it's just so interesting to see like the retail side of things, but then the thought leadership side of things, but they have kind of the same, very similar foundational pieces to them. So.
Oh, absolutely. They totally tie together.
Yeah, I love that. So what, Clementine, would you say to a potential a high hidden entrepreneur out there that might maybe be thinking about launching a business, but not really sure if they should follow their passion? What would you say to them?
Well, I think the first thing you do is that if it scares the shit out of you, do it.
Yeah.
Because I think that that's when you know you're on the right track. Because I know that I've always been the most scared of doing the things I was most passionate about because the idea of failing scared me more than failing in things I wasn't passionate about. So that's, I think, if it literally scares the shit out of you, then you're on the right path and you should do it. But I also have a quote that I've lived by, gosh, for decades, 2 decades at least. And I have it actually written in my bathroom. I have a huge portrait of it in my bathroom that a friend painted for me. And it says, dream what you want to dream, go where you want to go, do what you want to do, because you only have one life. Oh, sorry. Dream what you want to dream, go where you want to go, live where you want to live, because you only have one life and one chance to go where you want to go. I think that's how it goes. Anyway, something like that. I don't even know. Um, oh, you know what? It's Earl Nightingale. I never knew who said it. I just found it. It says, dream what you want to dream, go where you want to go, be what you want to be, because you only have one life and one chance to live how you want to live. That's what it is.
That's a
Uh,
good quote.
yeah. So Earl Nightingale said that. I've had that quote for 20 years and I had no idea where it came from. The power of the internet.
Yeah.
But that has been, and I get it all confused because it's all to me the same message. Like, dream what you want to dream. Like we all have dreams for a reason, and they're all there for a reason. And I believe that like dreams get put on our heart for a reason. And goals and all that. And it's like, go where you want to go. I've been to Ireland, I've been to India, I've been to Colombia, I've been all over the world because traveling is really important and to me. And then, I mean, even after I graduated college, I thought I was going to start a nonprofit. I didn't even think I was going to work for one. I thought I was going to start one. And then I went and got my master's degree and was like, now I feel like I'm old and now I have to get a job because I have all this debt from going to school. And so, but for me, it was always like just one thing, like I just always saw myself down this path. And I tell my husband all the time, like when we worry about money or we worry about our kids or other things that we don't know how we're going to do something, I was like, and this goes true for both of us, but I say we've never been homeless, we've never been hungry, and we've never gone without a day in our lives. Has our lives been completely privileged? Absolutely not. Have we gone a day without eating? Absolutely. Have we had days where we didn't know how long we'd have a roof over our head? Absolutely. Is that the reality for everyone? Absolutely not.
Right.
But what I do know is by having my own faith, my own dreams, my own goals, and my own tenacity, that those things have kept the necessities of life, food, shelter, and water. I've had access to all of those things my whole life because it's those are a non-negotiable for me. And so I've never put myself in a position to be in that space. Not that someone who has put themselves in that position, but I mean, I guess I say for like there have been times I didn't have a place to live, and I had friends that let me sleep on their couch for a month until I had paid rent. When I moved to Billings, where we live now, I lived in my cousin's basement for 6 months until I could save enough money for first and last month's rent. So I think that there's always an option. Sometimes they're really scary. I think the next one is ask for help.
Yeah.
That's another big one. I think so often we're so scared to ask for help. And what I've learned is my life got a lot easier when I started accepting help from mentors, from friends, from other business owners, from those around me who genuinely care about me and they wanted to positively impact my life. My life got way easier and my businesses got easier and they thrived and they did better. And so, yeah, those are kind of the things that have always stuck with me, that quote. And if it scares the shit out of you, do it and accept help. Like not even ask for it, accept it. When people say, what can I do to help? You can hand them a mop and say, mop my floor. And if they say, oh, that's not what I meant, then they're really not there to help you.
Right.
But if someone actually is there to help and they say, what can I do to help? And you hand them a toilet brush and say, I actually need the toilet scrubbed. I haven't had time to do that yet today. They say, okay, those are your people. That's your group. You keep that person close. They want to see you succeed at all cost, even if it means scrubbing the toilet.
Well, those are some great lessons for potential entrepreneurs. I think there are a lot of people that are in their job and they don't really see the way that they can do what they want to do. And you can live a life of your passion, but you don't have to do it alone. Ask for help, face your fears, tap into the entrepreneur inside of you. You know what I mean?
Find your genius.
Find your genius. Tap into it. Well, Clementine, thank you so much for being on the podcast today and inspiring others to walk a life of their passion. You truly do. And I really look forward to your podcast. I'll make sure that your contact information is in the show notes so they can follow you and follow your podcast when it comes out in a month.
Yeah, it's going to be, it should launch in about 4 weeks. We're already have a few episodes recorded and tapping them up so they can be launched, just ready to go.
I'm excited. It'll be fun.
Yeah, me too. Thanks so much, Shelby.
All right. Thank you. And to all you potential genius entrepreneurs out there, don't be afraid. Just jump in because you're never going to know what you're going to produce until you just do it. So just get out there and trust the people around you. We will see you next time on the Genius Entrepreneur Podcast, where we explore stories to inspire you to think about your genius in a different way. See you next time.
Hey, we all want to scale our business. Hey, I have the answer for you today to help you do that. If you're looking to scale from 5, 6, even 7 figures and beyond, book called Be Good, Be Brief, Be Gone. I'm going to give it to you for free. All you have to do is type in growfast.cash. I say again, growfast.cash, and you can download the book for absolutely free. I hope the book helps you this year. Take your business to the next level. Again, go grab the book, growfast.cash. I say again, growfast.cash. I wish you the best and grow, scale, and win.
Thanks for listening to Culture, Communication, and Brand Moments with your host, Shelby Jo Long. Please leave your feedback and visit strategicadvisorboard.com to get the latest and greatest business advisement on the planet. Follow us on social media for updates, and we will see you on the next episode.
There it is. Magnum. Holy moly.
Yeah, baby! That's what I've been waiting for!
Dear God, it's beautiful.